Okay. Well, Leon, here we are again, episode 8, and
Yes.
that brings us to the close of our perspective on another self. So, yes, how do you feel today?
It's very interesting, reflecting quickly back on the 7 episodes. It was quite a journey, the way that we did it. And yes, we called it Another Perspective on Another Self, which is a playful way to bring our own individual perspectives into it. What was really interesting for me is that we didn't really rehearse this. We just did it spontaneously. And somehow the synchronicity or the synchro way of putting it together worked well for me, if I look back.
Yeah, so we've had an enjoyable journey, and we're hoping that people who are looking at this are also having an enjoyable journey with it.
Yes.
So the idea of this journey is to maybe give a little bit of a different light on another self, because the movie is very, very busy, and we are looking at it from our point of view, doing family and systemic constellations. So it is really just you and I having a chat and giving another perspective.
Exactly. Yeah, and I think what could be helpful, if we so feel at the end of this, or maybe another recording, is just to highlight the stuff that we think is valuable to highlight in terms of learning, in terms of using this kind of format as a learning device. We can do that. We can also have a quick summary at the end of this episode. So let's see how this episode commentary goes.
Let's just start. So I'm going to ask you to take it away.
Right. So for me, the highlights of this episode today is Ada's turnaround, the way that she comes to insight about the work of someone right at the end, and that she actually has the thought that maybe they can work together. For me, that's kind of the highlights, because it's like the whole 8 episodes have been building up to that, as we call in Greek, the metanoia, the turnaround of Ada's perception. I also think she softens up a lot toward Topak, which is beautiful to watch. The cliffhanger at the end leaves us quite curious when Ada, after all this, now just walks away, and so you don't know where is this going. So that's quite an interesting one. And then the questions that you so beautifully highlighted: what is true love, and what is a man of true love? I mean, that's an interesting, maybe that's an episode on its own to talk about. The sealing order that Sergei just throws away as a throwaway line, that's an interesting one. The teasers want to know more. And then, of course, the surprise at the end, which I won't give away now.
Awesome. Yeah, so just in reflection to the previous series, Ada is the one who is the most skeptic, because she is very analytical in her thinking. She has a lot going on. So she's the one who asks all the questions, and it's also her life that is literally falling apart. So what I want to sort of just note is that when you do a constellation, it is not a miracle cure for anything. It is a stepping stone into linking the past to the present. And why do we do that? What is your idea? Why do we want to have this look into the ancestors for the present? What is your answer to that?
Well, before I answer that, I would say that, building on what you said, the past and the present, there's a kind of a gap, a misunderstanding sometimes, a hidden factor, a mystery, something that needs to be revealed. And for me, this work is like a bridge that you build between the past and the present moment that holds potential to help you to be fully present in your life, fully present, fully surrendered to the potential that your own being has. And sometimes, if we don't do this kind of personal development work, we've been occupied in our subconscious with thoughts and trying to clarify the mystery. And this work brings that right up from the unconscious to be on the surface so we can look at it and understand it and be fully present. So for me, that's kind of a summary.
Awesome. And also saying, so the way I like to look at it is the past is the present, because everything in the past is what we hold in the present, and we're not always aware of it. So there is this, we want to get away from the past, we only want to move into the future, but the unfortunate part is that whatever is in the past, we do carry into the future. So really it is, if you want to really have a new future, you've got to be in the present. It doesn't mean that your life miraculous comes together. It does mean that you have new stepping stones. It does mean that you have a new way of looking at life. And you have new choices, because those entrapments of the past, we can let it go. And when we let go of the entrapments of the past, we have more choice to the future. So I think that is really what it's about. It's having a new choice for the future without the entanglements and entrapments of the past. And I think that is really what we see here in this series is the lives aren't beautifully coming together. In fact, a lot of stuff is coming up. We have a lot of heartache coming up. And that is part of personal growth. So thank you for using that word. This is a path to personal growth in a very good way, with spiritual wisdom and understanding who am I in this world when I can be truly me.
Exactly. And so this episode opens up with this beautiful but powerful opening montage of how Toprak and Ada actually struggled with their earlier fallout, when she caught him with somebody else and actually wanted to advise him that she was falling pregnant, but then had no choice but to walk away. So that montage, quite powerful. It gives us what, as we say, that struggle of the past, and then brings it straight back into the current moment where we have Toprak reflecting and giving Ada his mom's rose necklace. So that for me is a lovely scene.
Which she had given to him in a previous episode for him to give to his daughter.
Yes.
And he's just giving it back to her because he feels that his mom wanted her to have it.
Yeah. So I love this playful start of the episode where he says, his mom apparently said to him, if you can accept the craziness of a woman, because that's part of the package, then stay with her, stay with that kind of woman. But you have to accept the craziness. This is just a playful way of teasing the feminine.
Yeah. And in this episode, we actually also see that the friends knew about Ada's pregnancy. They were happy to say, you know what, we will help you raise this child. And she doesn't want to raise the child by herself. So she makes this heart-wrenching decision to have the abortion. But she falls into a depression. And this is something that I have observed a lot in women who've had an abortion, is that there is this lingering yearning. That yearning stays, it just doesn't go away. And it keeps us trapped with the father of the child, whether we like it or not, whether that relationship continues or not. And in this case, that relationship does not continue. In fact, she walks away from it, starts a new life, yet she can't get away. And this is what happens. in our work, we say that from the time of conception, you are parents together. And that is so hard to understand, that we haven't got a child, we just conceived a child, and yet we are in the sacred bond of being parents together. Something we really need to give more attention to.
Yeah, and I think we elaborated a little bit more on that, on the mystery and the sacredness of the feminine masculine union, which is so beautiful. We illuminated a bit more on the previous episode, but here it comes back again in the form of that depression that sets in when there's a vacuum, when there's an absence of this life that was created, but maybe the timing was not appropriate, something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that is really, it is an ongoing question. It'll always be an ongoing question. I believe everybody needs to answer that for themselves, but understanding that a life created and excluded is an exclusion in the family system. And it's an exclusion whether it was aborted, or whether it was stillborn, or whether it aborted itself, which is whatever it is. A child that was created creates an energy in the family system. And to understand that is really, really key, to understand the significance of that energy.
Right.
And then everything's energy. And so then we get to the scene where Layla makes a choice not to leave with Erden. Yet he's captured, and she's captured as an accomplice, and they have this beautiful friend who comes and rescues her and gets her out of jail, and Erdem has to now pay his price. But again, this is now an end to that relationship. She really sees that she now needs to use her money for her own benefit, because that's the right use of the money. That's where the money belongs. And then she asks Fico to come into a partnership with her. And where she helped Fico with the restaurant before, now Fico is helping her. So it's an equal give and take. And I love that exchange where she helped Fico and Fico now comes in to help her. It's a beautiful give and change. At the same time, we see that ill-gotten gain doesn't go in a right way. Had she gone on that boat with Erden, it would have remained ill-gotten gain. And now, because she uses it for herself, we can sense the prosperity that is going to flow for her in her new life.
From a therapeutic perspective, we can also say maybe she came to the end of a toxic codependent relationship, and she now learned how to put a boundary in place and how to make new choices.
Yes.
A choice that reflects a more of a interactive and interdependent kind of relationship rather than a toxic relationship. So it's a quick transition, but in there is a gem of deeper understanding of what actually plays out in our constellation rooms. Yeah.
It is, but it's as small as it is, it's very significant.
Yeah.
It is also significant we see at the end that Fico has spoken to his father, and it's significant that his fortune is now also going to turn around. Well, we assume that.
Yeah.
So this is what brings us to this beautiful sentence here. All things in life need balance, love, and compassion. Life is not about those earthly things. And that is really what life is about. All things in life need to be in balance. And I think that is what I really try to say with the balance that is being restored. And we can see in this whole episode, there's a lot of restoration of balance.
Mm. Yeah, and Fico takes this bashing from Muko quite in a calm and relaxed way, keeps his cool. He looks her with these shiny eyes, but she gives him a bashing, quite a bashing there. And I like the last sentence there that you quoted. Some things are meant to be and some not. Yeah, that is a lot of life is also about accepting things as they are.
It's about surrendering to what is.
Hmm.
And some things just flow and some things just don't. And all of that is life. But the other part here that is really key in this episode is the signing of the papers. Ada is signing her divorce papers while Sevgi is signing her marriage vows. And so there's an end in a marriage and there is a start in a marriage. So there's always this, what is not meant to be was a marriage that was not really good for either Elim or Ada, but it was. But it came to a good resolution, and so that was not meant to be. But then a new relationship is meant to be, the one where we see the festival with Sevgi and Fico getting married.
Yeah. Yeah, like you say, it's the end of one and the beginning of another. And I think for me, always key in this work is to ensure that we facilitate good closures.
Yes.
Because if closures are open, then it keeps on haunting the system and the system doesn't come to equilibrium.
Yes.
That relationship stays disturbed. So I think it's very important the way that Celine and Ada closes that period of their lives.
Yes. And then there is the turmoil in Ada again. What about Toprak? And the turmoil continues. And she's stuck in that past. She's stuck in that loss of the child. And her friends just, they can't get her. They just don't understand it. And Ada does the one thing that she does best, running away. Works well for her. And the friends say, you can't avoid everything all the time. And you can't cover it all up. And this is where trauma is. We don't want to be stuck in it. We want to run away from it and leave it behind, and we can't. And then if we can't run away from it, we want to cover it up. And this is so, we all do that. That is so natural. But you can't. And you need to start facing things right on. And that is what we do with this work. We take it and we face the traumas head on and gently allow the movement through the trauma so that we can dissipate it rather than leaving it or covering up. So we dissipate it, it gets dissolved. And that is how we make peace with the past. Not by running away and not by covering it up.
In modern psychology, I think the term spiritual bypassing is often used. And I think that is also key, is that we think, if we attend to our spirituality, so to speak, that these emotional things that are uncomfortable and disturbing us, that this will naturally go away. But these things are there for deep lessons and to teach us wisdom. So there's no bypassing. You have to look at it straight in the face and deal with it.
So what you're saying, Leon, is that this human body needs to be experienced. And we can't say, oh, this is the body, the pain body, and we leave it in the pain body because we are just going to be in our spiritual world. Then we don't feel the pain body. And that's not true. We are in this body. We've come here from source through the bodies of others for us to have this life. And as hard as it may be, that is a reality.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's sometimes, not sometimes, most of the time, the body is an extension of the subconscious. So if you suppress it into the subconscious, the body will show up with symptoms that needs to be addressed and needs to be looked at.
And that is the thing is, Fika doesn't like to talk about his past because it is so painful. But eventually he does open up and he does talk about it. And the release in it is so beautiful because once he can open it, he opens it up to Sefke and he talks about it. It gives him that courage to go and talk to his father. And that is that is something we often don't understand, that once I have opened up to that pain and I have felt it, something new comes through. There's a strengthening in the heart area that comes through, and the truth that comes through, and that says, okay, I can now face that I needed to face a long time. So he does go with it. And then we have this beautiful scene, this lovely scene where these girls have ice cream and they're just having so much fun. And it's so beautiful to see that the girls just have their part where they are doing their thing with each other. They tell each other the truth, and yet they can sit and have ice cream, all with a whole lot of love floating around.
Yeah.
And so Toprak this time, so often we see Fico talking to Toprak, but this time it's Toprak who says to Fico, you got to talk to Sefke. And there is this uneasiness. Sefke is uneasy. They don't know where they are with each other in their relationship. And then there's this uneasiness. And
he basically, he doesn't feel enough. He questions whether his worthiness can measure up to Sefke. And so that's exactly the symptoms of the phenomena of a masculine that's disconnected from the father, or from the healthy father.
From the healthy father.
Yeah, from the healthy father. Because they feel, they don't feel enough. They don't feel they can measure up to life. They can meet life as life meets them. They feel like they fail. And with that in mind, that context, he looks at this wonderful woman that he loves in every way, and he just feel, I'm not enough. And this is where the brother to brother conversation comes.
And it's beautiful to see that. We've got the women having their chit-chats, and then we also have the men actually having the men talk, which is completely different to the female talk. The men have a completely different energy. They are like, be brave, brother. Do it, brother. Where the women are more, you are this, you are that. So it's a completely different energy between the male discussions and the female discussions. And but the thing is, what is a man's true love? And that's the question that really comes through this whole series. How does a man stand up for what he believes his love is for a woman when he even doesn't feel enough, or whatever it may be? And I think we see a lot. What really touches me about this whole series is the men need to be strong, yet they also have their failings. They also have their challenges, and they need to meet those challenges as well. So we as women need to understand that it's not just us who has a tough time. The men have a tough time too. And to maybe engage a little bit more with our men and be more empathetic and not have so many expectations. Because we see in the series is the girls' expectations of the fathers, the mothers' expectations of the fathers, and how the girls then have to meet those expectations because the fathers are not able to meet them. And this is really what it's about life. Our parents are just humans as well.
Yeah.
And they have to carry their burdens, and we have to carry our burdens.
In fact, I think this is a beautiful workshop potential for the future, to actually call the workshop what is a man of true love and what is a woman of true love.
Oh, I love
2
that.
days. 2 days, we can do a wonderful workshop. I think the question is even equally valid to women, because women
Yes.
struggle with it in a different dimension, a different way perhaps, but it's equally valid. Now, what's interesting for me as a man, and reflecting on the question, it feels like we have more of an external focus, which is not always true, because equally the feminine can carry the worldly aspects of their lives very well, of course, but it's more like we have an external focus into the world, a contribution to the world that we can make, and women are also perhaps that too, but they're also inwardly focused. But I think, in a nutshell, if you were to ask me to answer the question in a short sentence, I would say, like the series suggests, it is a man who stopped doubting himself. Why? Because he's done his inner work. He's faced his demons. He's faced all of that. And now he can show up because he's cleaned up his interior. And he can meet the exterior, the world, so to speak, with confidence. And I think that's what women also yearn for, is men that love in that way. No matter what comes, they will show up confidently to meet that future in a confident way. And for me, that's key.
And it takes courage to reflect inward. It really takes courage. And so, yes. And then we always need to take time to heal the roots. Because when we look after our roots, our branches are strong.
Beautiful.
And we carry strong fruit. And that is the message I really love that's come through in the series with someone, always bringing it back to the roots of the olive tree and the needing of taking care of the roots. And that's really what you're talking about, the internal world, is we need to check in. What is it that is growing in me, and where's that growth coming from? The growth that I give forward in the world around me. So, yes, it is so significant that we all, and this is my message for men, take care of your roots. Find your roots if you don't have them, and get grounded in them and heal them, because then you are a strong man who can hold a strong woman. So that's my little message for men.
Beautiful. I love it.
And then we have Sefki getting into it with her mother, and the mother's all, I'm not going to come to this wedding, whatever. But Layla is also now angry with Muko. And they now discover that Muko has really hurt Zaman and them all with her actions.
Yeah, that scene doesn't end well. Muko, Muko storms out in a huge rage. And then there's this throwaway line from Sergei that you might have more light on, when she says, I'll get that sealing order revoked. Now, is that to do what Muko reveals later on about the real father? Or what is that to do with?
That's a good question. Because the question is, why did Muko not ever share the information before? And I think it does prompt her to because she's now challenged on all levels, and it doesn't matter anymore because she can't hide it anymore either. But her choice of timing is a little bit unfortunate. But before I go right there, I want to talk about this forgiveness. I struggled with inner constellations when I learned that you don't use I forgive you in a constellation. And I had a real struggle because everybody just says it. And I love the way it is clarified here. We call it accepting, finding peace in a situation. The I forgive you makes me, I've got the power to forgive you. So it has this unbalance.
There's a rank.
Exactly. And the balance then is I acknowledge, I accept my part and I leave you with your part. But also it is bringing a situation into a line of peace rather than creating another inequality that needs to then be solved later. And the fact is, we can be angry with our parents. We can be angry with our forefathers. We can blame them for everything. But the fact is, we can't choose our family. So why should we care? But could we have empathy with their past pains? Because they had challenges too. And their challenges were big for them as much as our challenges are big for us. So it's just the challenges that change. But the fact is, from generation to generation, we will always have challenges. So we may enjoy them.
I love that you put this emphasis on it. I think that empathy is definitely a better word. Compassion is probably another word. Compassion for my family tree, what they went through, and yet here I am. I made it through to this moment, but having compassion. Lots of time there's a kind of a holy anger. Let's call it a holy anger in system work, where people want to express their anger and so on. But even that, then when it comes to forgiveness, it comes with a certain rank. You know, you did wrong. I was the victim, you were the victor, and so on. But I think in Holland, there's a beautiful new direction now to combine the Course in Miracles with constellation work. That prompted me to just go and have a look. What is the Course in Miracles? What is the definition of forgiveness? And it's very interesting, if I may read it for a second.
Awesome.
Forgiveness, on the other hand, it says, is still and quietly does nothing. It offends no aspect of reality, nor seeks to twist it to appearance that it likes. It merely looks and waits and judges not. He who would not forgive must judge. So, for he must justify his failure to forgive. But he who would forgive himself must learn to welcome truth exactly as it is. And that's where you say the acceptance. So I think that's a nice, beautiful, rounded off kind of way to also say, accept what is and move on with your life, as opposed to having grudges and judgments about what everybody should have done and not have done.
And I want to sidestep here again, going back to my situation with my father. When we met, the first time we met, he asked me to write a letter about my life and to also forgive him for his part in not being present in my life. And I think having done this work, I had the wisdom to say to him, it's not my job to forgive you. I'm at peace with what is. And whatever you need to do to find peace within yourself, That is your job. And I fully believe that is why we had such beautiful time together. And where there was absolute honesty, there was this openness, this freedom to just be. For whatever reason, we came together at that time and we had beautiful time. So it's never too late. But I didn't take the higher ground and say, I need to forgive you. I didn't go there because honestly and truthfully, I had not an iota of anger because I had come to peace with what is. And that
Beautiful.
is when it comes together in a beautiful way. So the question is, do you want to carry your past on your back with all your anger? Or do you want to take it off your back and take what you need from inside the packet and carve a new path forward? And that is really where we started, is what do we want to do? We want to take care of our roots so that we can tend to them gently and leave all those things, all those angers, all those things that have built up over the years, just leave them and heal them and bring them into wholeness. And then we don't have to carry them forward.
There's this beautiful scene where Figo stands at the door of the restaurant and he locks it, puts the keys in. He locks the door, takes the keys out, and he hands it over to the person who owns the building. Very beautifully symbolic of this thing that we're just talking about. Closing the door on the past. Let the past be what it is, but not continuously trying to revive and revitalize the past. Just leave it as it is. And then as a result of that gesture, that decisive moment, closing the restaurant, the new opportunities then opens up afterwards.
Yeah, so we've got a lot of closings and beginnings in this whole episode, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
But we also get to meet Zaman, where he tells about his story, because he's a very closed book. He doesn't really share anything. And now he shares with Ada about his past. How he came, as his forefathers came as one of the immigrants and planted the first olive tree, and the significance of the olive trees in the only thing that was saved from the past. And this is the thing, is saving just that nugget from the past that is good, that has strength, that has growth, and planting that from which all the other olive trees grew. And that is why he is so tenderly looking after this old olive tree, the first one that was planted, that still has life and still can give life.
That must be one of the most beautiful scenes in the series, or it's very touching for me, where he relates that since the 1900s, all of these olive trees were planted, but it started with this one olive, as he gestures in his hand, and how the two of them, the grandfather and the grandmother, got together and made a decision, let's plant this and see what happens. And out of that then came this whole orchard of beautiful old olive trees. So I love this concrete symbolism. You know, you can see the orchard in front of you. It's very grounded. It's a very grounded way to create the narrative of moving on. It also relates to, sometimes we disappear in our head and we expect things to come right, but we don't take any rightful action to implement what is needed. So on many levels, I just love that scene.
Yes, absolutely. And Ada starts to reflect, and she realizes how everybody's lives have changed. So from where they started, they've gone through a lot of turmoil. And this is the thing, is when we do what we can call soul work, because I think this is soul work or internal work or whatever we want to call that, there comes a time when everything has to unravel first. Everything is like what was needs to re-establish itself. So we have this period of unraveling, but then Ada finally comes to realization there's more to it. And she looks at it and she sees how everybody's lives have changed and how everybody got their wish fulfilled. And that is so beautiful, is that where they sat and made their wishes, praying to the gods, and all their wishes were fulfilled in the most beautiful and most interesting ways, if we look at it.
Are you referring to the scene where Ada now sits with the olive tree on her lap, and then Toprak arrives?
And then Toprak also arrives, and Toprak has this, I wish everything was different.
Yeah.
And she says to Toprak, well, if it were different, you wouldn't have had floor. So you've got to be grateful for that too. And then all he wants is for Ada to trust him again.
Yeah.
And she is slightly resistant, but she's starting to open up because she can see that everybody is changing. And at some stage, it's up to her to invite those changes too. And then we have where Zaman could start practicing again, and he says, no, I need time out. I'm not going to practice again. And it creates this, oh, we need to get him to work again. We need to get him to work again. And he is like, no, I'm not going to work again. And so you've got the scene with Ada and Toprak listening to the beautiful music that he has written. And they have this beautiful scene where they are sort of coming together. We have the scene where the partnership with Layla and Fiku starts happening. And Ada is...
Sorry, I just want to insert these words because it brought a smile. Ada thinks it's totally insane. It's an insane idea to go with Toprak to the Netherlands. And Toprak thinks it's insane to lose everything that they had built up between them. So a little bit of humor, a bit of play with words, but it says exactly what was going on in the ambiguity in that energy field. Shall we not? You know, it's a lovely way of putting it.
And the constant choices, because every choice, with every choice you have to give up something to go to something else. And then it is the question, is it possible that our past, whether or not we remember it, is already saved someone? So the thing is, we're just always looking at the past, at what it's taken from us, all the pain and the trauma that's there. But there's also the saving grace in it. And we need to look at, how is my life? What's the worth in my life because of the past? And what's the saving in that? And Ada is ready to move forward. She makes peace with her father's belongings. And Muko feels like, Sevki's gone completely against me. She's doing what I don't want. So she's really miffed. And Sevki is just so gentle with her mother. And she says, you know what? All I want is you. You are my mother. You are my mother. And I think that realization that she needs her mother as a child needs a mother, not to look after her mother, but for her mother to be there for her as the mother, no matter what choices she makes. for her husband. All she wants is for the mother to give her blessing.
Yeah. And she says, if you are hiding things from me, I'm sure you will know what is best. It's also a beautiful way of handing the parent responsibility back to the parent.
Yes, exactly. And then we have all these dances and everybody being jolly. And I found it quite interesting that the person who was supposed to do the wedding ceremony is not able to arrive, and Zaman steps in. And it's quite key that the whole wedding is in his home. And so he is like having everything, it's like it all comes together in that wedding ceremony.
I hope you laughed when you heard the sentence, no tears allowed, because it will mess up our makeup.
But they were tears of joy. So. Yeah. And then again, even in this beautiful ceremony, things are coming through. Toprak receives his passport, which means he needs to make a decision. At the same time, Ara has finally warmed up and wants to give the relationship with Toprak a try. And Layla, what's going to happen with her? She might be pregnant. And all this is going on while this happy ceremony, while everybody's dancing and being jolly in that sense.
Yeah, so the gods even granted Layla a wish on a completely different level.
On a completely different level. And I love the way it was played like that. It was really lovely for it to play like that. Whereas we don't know how it goes forward, but what is good about it is that she seems to be quite accepting of what happens now. And then we come to the end of this particular series, which is where the cliffhanger comes, and nobody understands why this happened. Where Sefki opens a letter from her mother, and the truth is finally revealed to her. And how do you read that truth?
Well, it sounds like Aram and Buko fell in love first. She, as a young girl, walked into the shop. They glanced at each other. They loved each other immediately. A little relationship happened. And then the same guy was then shot because he was part of an activism program or something. And he got killed. And then the father that Sergei thought was her father stepped in and said, no, don't worry, I'll take care of you. And he protected Moko and married her and became the surrogate stepfather of Sergei. But what's very interesting is that both of those people were shot and murdered. The one was shot, the other one was murdered. Very interesting that how that, shall we call it, karmic thread plays very strongly in Sergei's life. Yes,
that's why she's an attorney, to right the wrongs.
Yes, exactly.
And that is, it is very sad, but she then understands her mother, why her mother couldn't basically grieve her father, and she never quite understood that. But this news puts her into a relapse. And so the question is, was she healed? And why did she have a relapse? And so my take on it is that when we work, and Zaman did say it right in the beginning, he did say, this is not a medical treatment. this is alternate, but you have to still follow your medical treatment. But in the euphoria of feeling good and feeling better, she didn't see the need. And I think the reason why they put this message in here so strongly is for us not to have the expectation of miraculous healing. The expectation is your wounds, your emotional wounds get healed, but your body, you still need to do what is right for your body to do. And we need to protect ourselves when we do this work, not to promise what maybe not be able to be delivered.
I totally agree with you there. And I think we can expand a little bit on it, maybe at a later stage as well, because it's core to the work. I think the misconception sometimes is that constellation work or this form of work is competing with the scientific world, that we stand across the floor from each other. And I don't think that's the case. I think we're complementary to each other in relationship, because the one works on the symptomatic level and the other works on the causal level. Now, if you ask the question, what happened then in that relapse? What is potentially possible for her? Now, I think you and I know that in trauma, overwhelm can quickly cause a relapse of things that beautifully been built up in the subconscious, strong self-esteem, everything else. But triggers causes then relapse. And in this case, one could say that it was just too much for Sergey. It was an overwhelming, it's the wedding, everything happens at the same time. And on top of that, this news come at the night when she really wanted to celebrate her newfound love. So, hello, can you blame her that the subconscious then collapsed under that overwhelming bits of information that comes her way?
But for me, there's also for her the realization, whatever I believed the wrong thing. My whole life, I built on a different truth. And so it's her whole life on the truth that she had built it is basically collapsing. And for me, that's more the significance to it.
Great.
And then Ada corners someone. And she finds something. And she asks someone, we need you, please. And the man says, I don't really want to, but she corners him about his son. Doesn't give an answer, but she does ask him the question. Is that why you are a father figure for everyone? So he is protecting all these young men. He's there as an elder for all these young men because he also has his pain. So it's not a case of he is free from everything. He also has his pain. He also has his journey that he walked. And then we have the beautiful ending with Toprak and Ada. And just when we believe, oh, this is going to come together in such a beautiful way, a new choice opens up. So Ada and Toprak are looking at their future together, and they're sort of busy making decisions. Which way are we going to go forward? And she asks him for time because she needs to stay with safety now. So she feels a very strong pull back to her friend. And Toprak says, no, that's okay. He understands that. And then we have Floor's mother, Eve, bringing Floor, and she makes quite a scene in front of Ada.
Yeah.
Which leaves Ada blank. And where to from here?
So just to keep the drama interesting, we have to have kind of a cliffhanger to keep us guessing what's going to come next. And yeah, as he is about to walk away, assumingly that he's now departing for the Netherlands, then the surprise is jumped on everybody towards the end. But then beautifully, what I like is the way the series starts with the three people, the three heroes, the heroines that we meet. And the last scene is where they all three volunteer, hands up in the air, to be willing to do a constellation. So it's a beautifully rounded off last scene of the episode.
And so the work continues.
Exactly.
So thank you, Liam. And so our work will continue.
Yeah.
Because both of us love this work. We both love doing this work. And I'm hoping that what we have discussed here opens curiosity, opens some new thought forms, and I look forward to what comes next.
Yeah. And what would be nice if we, out of this, could come more questions, then one could record some answers to those questions.
I would love that. Thank you, Leon, for doing this series with me. It's been wonderful working with you. And let's see what the future brings for us.
Thanks for inviting me.
It's such a pleasure. Bye for now.
Bye.